All right, back in biceps today. So I'm going to switch things up for myself a little bit, keep it interesting. So I'm going to first start with a variation of a pull down using a cable machine, but you can do this exact same thing with bands as well. So if you're working out at home and you don't have a cable machine, that's where bands are pretty awesome. When it comes to back day, there's a lot of stuff you can do with dumbbells, but pull downs isn't one of them. So, if we were in a commercial gym, I've said this a lot before. In a commercial gym, our trolleys would be much further apart. So we would have a much wider angle, which for this exercise, I probably prefer, but this will work. So I'm going to show you what it looks like first with the cable machine, and then we'll mimic it with bands on our second set. So let me make sure I got my resistance levels where I want them. So with pull downs, if you've watched any of my workouts before, you'll hear me talking about how I like to think about driving those elbows out wide and then driving them down, as opposed to thinking about this movement being very linear, right? It's not just straight up and down. So I find that this, for me, gives a really nice angle of pull for that movement. So dropping down, so I've got tension here at the beginning of the range of motion. So again, driving elbows out wide and then down, and you just get a really nice squeeze down here. Make sure you take that time, get that little isometric squeeze at the bottom. Not only is it a good strong contraction, but it also demonstrates control, and that should be your cue that you're using a weight that you can handle. And then the goal is use as much weight as you can while still using that same control. So you still need to go heavy enough. First one's a little light, so squeeze out some reps. That was 11. 12. 13. 14. One more. 15. Nice. So we'll go up on the next set. But I'll show you what a band version looks like. And there's two ways to do it, depending on whether you have one set of bands or two. So if you're going to do it with two, you need to make sure that you have two bands of equal resistance. So here we go. So these are both from Under Sun Fitness. They look different. They're the same one as the red and black TA2 edition set. There's the black and green Elite series, but they're the exact same resistance level, and that's what's most important. Now, I don't recommend doing what I used to do, which is a lark knot, where you loop it inside itself. It works, but it wears out your band prematurely. So that's why I developed a anchoring system for Under Sun that's got some padded loops. I'm trying to see if, well, I'm just going to do what you're not supposed to do, just for the sake of speed here, just so you can see what it looks like. But it's going to be the identical thing. Starting here, So make sure you grab high enough on the band where you have tension at the beginning of the range of motion. And same thing, elbows wide and driving them down. And there's just something about that. Directly comparing that to the cable, maybe it's just the extra freedom of movement. Maybe it's the variable resistance where you get more resistance the more you stretch it. Just something about the contraction you get with bands is hard to beat. So I'm going to finish off this exercise with cable, but now you know how to do it with bands. Key is going to be, where do you anchor it? Ideally, maybe you have a pull-up bar. All right, so set 2. And just like all of our pull downs, make sure we're not sinking our chest in here. We want to push that chest out, slight arch in the back, so chin up. Get a nice strong contraction that way. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, as you start to get tired, try to resist the temptation of using too much biceps. And this is where that, whatever you want to call it, mind muscle connection, call it focus, call it discipline, whatever you want to call it. But when we get tired, we have a tendency to want to use more biceps. We're going to feel stronger that way. And when you do that, you notice you're pulling more like this. Always think about those elbows, driving them out, wide and down. Now I try to apply that same philosophy to all my pull downs, whether it's here, whether it's with a bar, machine, doesn't matter. So trying to keep the 90-second rest, enough time to stretch out the muscle that we're working in between our sets. Grab a drink of water. We'll get ready for set 3. So if you've been following some of these workouts over the past, I don't know, anywhere at least 12 weeks into this, if not more, my intensity lately, the last week, has not been where it normally is. And so I'm kind of fighting through some injuries. But I think it's important to talk about, even though I don't like talking about my injuries. Normally I wouldn't say shit about it. Just, feels like I'm complaining. And I'm not much of a complainer, but I feel like it's important to talk about in these videos because it's going to happen. You're going to face those situations where maybe you're not motivated, maybe you got an injury, whatever the case is, and you're just not feeling your workouts. You just got to push through it. You just do what you can do and get through it. In the grand scheme of things, 1 week, whether it's like the best workout you've ever done or not, doesn't really fucking matter at the end of the day. The most important thing is just getting in there and doing it and staying consistent with it. All right, I'm going to try to go up a notch. Speaking of intensity, see if I can push myself a little bit harder here, while still keeping that discipline. And that's the trick. So chest out, chin up. Nice. That's 8. Let me see if I can get at least one more. Good. Good stuff. That's exercise 1, done. So like I said, if you don't have a cable machine, no big deal. Do it with bands. Any form of pull down you can think of, you can mimic it with bands. Usually the key is just where do you anchor it? At a minimum, you can anchor it to a door. So that right there is part of the undersun anchoring system. So this spongy foam part goes on the other side of the door. You close the strap in there. You got the loop hanging there. Then you take one of your band loops, put the band inside there, clip it in. The band hangs right in there. So if you've got a door, you've got an anchor point. And then of course we also have our universal anchor strap. So that's great for looping it around whatever, trees, bumper on your car, pretty much anything that's solid can become an anchor point. All right. So we're going to transition over to some dumbbells. Now you can do these standing if you want, 2 different ways. Grab some light dumbbells here. I could do both arms at the same time standing. That I used to do a lot of. Problem is, kind of a little rough on my low back. The other way you can do it, solve that problem, is you brace yourself. And then you can do singles. The only downside with singles is it takes twice as long. So if you have a bench, that's another option. Come in here, and now we're able to brace ourselves on the bench. And now I can do both arms at the same time. So that's why you would maybe do one versus another. And of course, you mix it up. Keep it interesting. A lot of times you'll hear me say that it's not about what exercise necessarily works better or is more effective. It's what's better for you. And sometimes that's based off of limitations, injury being one of those. All right. So we're going to do a combination row. So it's going to be a 2-parter. So first, we're going to keep the elbows close to the body, drive the elbows back, come down, drive the elbows high and wide. So that's 1. Elbows close to the body and low, elbows high and wide. That's 2. Keep that arch in the back. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. Nice. Stretch it out. So just like our pull downs, you want to lead with that elbow. So it's driving that elbow backwards as opposed to pulling the hand. The forearm and hand should just follow the elbow. I guess one way of looking at it is if you're doing it the wrong way, focusing on your hands, pulling your hands, well, then that would be pushing the elbow backwards. Think of it the opposite, pulling the elbow backwards and letting that pull the forearm and the hand. I don't know if that made any sense or if that actually made it sound more complicated than it really is. Whew. But I like doing these. You really hit the back pretty thoroughly from top to bottom by alternating between those two angles. When we go high and wide, we're getting more of those muscles in the upper back, getting the rhomboids, you're hitting the traps. Remember, your traps also help pull your shoulder blades back together, getting some rear delts in there. And of course, we're also getting those lats. All right, set 2. Why don't you swing in there? All right. Chin up. So first one, I think about driving toward the hips. And then this one is more chest height. Now, you could do this with a bar. I just find that it's a little more challenging. One, bar is going to hit the bottom of the bench, so it's going to restrict your range of movement. And 2, you're locked into one hand position with the bar. You notice with these, as I drive tight and low, my hands are in a neutral position. Look at the thumb. And then when I come high and wide, I'm pronating just a little bit there. So here and there. So you're not going to be able to get that kind of flexibility in your hand position with a bar, which is why I prefer the dumbbells. And it also puts less stress on my elbow and shoulder doing it with the dumbbells. All right, set 3. Make sure chin up. Don't look at the ground. Look forward. That'll help you keep that little bit of a slight arch in your back. Now all my fans of bands out there, yes, you can do this exact same thing with the bands. You could do them standing, which would look like this. So first low and then high. You could do them sitting down, anchored around something, or you could do it around your feet in a sitting position. So just happen to be doing dumbbells here, but again, you can mimic the same thing with bands. So I got one more set of these. Oh, I'm good. That was 3. I was saying it was almost. Brain fart. Look at that. Okay. Good stuff. So both our pull down and our row are both compound movements using 2 joints. So you're moving at the shoulder and also at the elbow. So we're already using some biceps, which is why this is technically a pull day. We're doing both back and biceps. So we're pre-fatiguing the biceps as we do this stuff, but now we're going to move on to a back isolation exercise where we are only going to move at the shoulder, which is what makes it an isolation exercise. And that's going to be our push down, although the way I like to do it kind of technically is more of a pull than a push. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I did a straight bar, which is the way that I first learned how to do these. Most people learn to do them this way. So hands on top, arms straight, and pushing down. Hence the name push down. What I don't like about this, especially with a straight bar, is watch my elbow relative to my body. In other words, where this range of motion stops, which is right here. So my elbow is right next to my side. Why? Because the bar is hitting my body. I like to get more range of motion. The further I can get my elbow or my arm behind my body, the stronger the contraction I can get. So instead of a straight bar, I then started using a rope. Do that there. So with a rope, now that clears my body a little bit better and I can get my elbow a little further back. Only downside is it's not the most comfortable. All the pressure kind of ends up being there on your pinky, smashed up against the end of the rope. It's not bad. You know, I did that for 2 decades, so it works. But I dig this thing. I've shown this before on my videos. Nice thing is, not only is it comfortable to grab onto, but being also longer like this allows me to clear my body even more. So I just like the squeeze. And so technically it almost looks like a pull. So I like to make sure, depending on the height of your trolley, you're gonna have to adjust your position. If the trolley was higher and I had tension here, then I could start a little more upright, start about here, but I don't. So that's where I can either drop down, I could even come down here. This works pretty well as well. Slight bend in the elbow, which I like to keep the entire time. And then I'm driving those elbows back. So it's not pulling my hands down. It's driving the elbows down and back. And I like to look upward to keep that little arch in the back. So it's a semicircular motion as opposed to a straight line. So you just have to be disciplined. Make sure that you're not pulling using those biceps. As soon as you start to do that, as soon as you start getting movement at the elbow, then it's no longer an isolation move. Then it starts to look like a mini row. Nice. So 2 more sets of these, and then we will do some biceps to finish off the day. All right. Actually, on set 3, I'll show you sometimes what I'll do as a finisher. Actually, we'll even do it here on set 2. So first, we'll do our push down as normal until we hit the point where you can't do anymore using good form. get one more here. 8. So that's my point where finish there. So now we turn it into a mini row. A little bit of a compound movement of sorts, but still driving that elbow back. And I'm not fully extending, partial range of motion. I just focus on that squeeze. Ah. And that's a nice way to finish off that set. We'll do the same thing on our third set. So even though we hit failure with the isolation movement, by doing a little bit of a row, now we get to use a little bit of biceps to assist us and really finish those lats off. Just little fun things you can try. I've gotten to a point with my training where I don't feel the need to do a crazy amount of volume anymore. I used to. Now I know that if I apply the right amount of intensity and thoroughly work a muscle, that's sufficient, that works. So that's just one way to do that. You know, just get those extra 2, 3, 4 little reps on a finisher. All right, last set of these. Again, make sure you don't let that chest sink in. Big chest, chin up. All right, here we go. Drive those elbows back. Nice. Yes. Good stuff. So that's back. Now we're going to hit some biceps. And I've been trying to be cautious here. Still have a nagging injury in my biceps, and I was starting to feel better, and like a dumbass, start pushing it again and push too hard. So I need to exercise a bit more discipline here and play it smart, but playing it smart doesn't mean that you can't go in there and have a good workout and have a good level of intensity. You just have to do it using a bit of caution, that's all. Let me get this bench out of the way. So the one thing lately that does not bother me is doing just a regular standing biceps curl. And with bands, probably one of my favorites. Simple, but good. right. This go around, I might actually I'm going to show you. You don't have to do them this way if you don't have the equipment, no big deal. But just so you can see the difference, one option is just coming down here, making sure you grab low enough where you've got tension at the beginning of the range of motion, and then curling it up. Another way, grab a heavier band. This is where these Undersun band loops are cool. Now, attach handles to it. And just like so. So you notice nice wide foot position here. I'm creating more tension on the band. The other thing you could do if you wanted to, and I've done this before, is actually stepping on the sides of the band. There's another way to create more tension here at the beginning of the range of motion. But just another way that you can do curls. This is awesome for, especially for shoulder presses. So that's just another option. And then of course, there's the fat grips that we've been using a lot lately. So the only downside with the fat grips and with those handles is that I can't grab the band closer to the anchor point to take that slack out. So you have to rely on doing that either with a wider stance or your anchor points. So. Sideways here. It's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. One more. Nice. So I'm going to stick with that resistance level. I would rather do more reps like I did there. That was 15. And take it easy on my shoulder. Sometimes it's tempting, you know, you want to go in there and want to lift heavier, and it can be frustrating not being able to do what you normally are able to do. I know that feeling. And I also know what it feels like to give in to the temptation and push yourself and then do more harm than good. That's why I say it takes a bit of mental discipline. It takes discipline to push yourself hard. I mean, me personally, I find that that's probably one of the bigger challenges a lot of people have is they'll go in, they'll work out consistently 4 or 5 days a week, maybe more. They'll go in for an hour, hour and a half, and they'll do that for years. but they just don't push themselves hard enough. So it takes the right mindset to go in there and make yourself uncomfortable, but the flip side is there's times where you have to use a different kind of mental discipline and play it smart. And find different ways to create that intensity. One way to do it, simply doing a few more reps. That's 5. That's 8. Ten. 11. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, we're down to last set. Home stretch on this workout. By the way, just a reminder, we've got this week, we've got next week, and that's a wrap for this series. It's been fun, it's been real, but time to move on to the next thing. Still trying to figure out what that is, though. All right, one more set. All right, let's do it. Turn around and actually face you guys. That's 5. 6. 7. 8. One more. So you know, it's keeping those rest periods shorter. Same resistance level went from 15 down to only 12 and finally down to 10. Now, if I were to rest a lot longer, I could probably keep that 15 rep range, but I like keeping the rest period shorter. Not only does it make for a quicker workout, keeps the intensity up, and it makes those exercises, in my opinion, just as effective at 10 reps as it would be at 15 reps with that same weight. Because I don't really give a shit what the weight is or the resistance or how many reps I do. All I care about is how hard am I making the muscle work. And so, like I said, there on that third set, at 10 reps, I was working just as hard as I was at 15 reps on the first set. But that's it. Done. Next workout, legs.